There are meetings that change lives, and then there are encounters that alter the very destiny of humanity itself. This is one of those encounters. A meeting written not on paper, but perhaps in the invisible scripts of karma, destiny, or forces far beyond what we dare to comprehend. This is the story of a woman unlike any other. A rebel, a seeker, a soul driven by something more powerful than reason, more relentless than desire, the hunger for truth, ultimate truth. Her name was Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, a woman who refused to accept the world as it appeared, a woman haunted since childhood by visions, by voices, and by the image of a mysterious man, a man whose face appeared to her in dreams, whose presence walked beside her in moments of danger, whose gaze seemed to transcend not just distance, but the very fabric of space and time. Who was he? A phantom, a spirit, a guardian, or something far beyond? Years passed, and still, the visions persisted. A calling, a whisper in the dark, a promise made long before this life, a promise that one day they would meet. And that day finally came. The year was 1851. The place, London, a city bursting with the fires of industry, invention, and empire. The world was changing, fast. Steam powered the dreams of nations. Iron and coal forged the skeleton of modern civilization. But beneath this noise, beneath the smoke, the progress, and the spectacle, something else was moving, something hidden, something ancient. And within the very heart of that city, amidst the swirling crowds, she saw him. Not in a dream, not in a vision, but standing there, as real as the stones beneath her feet. Tall, commanding, draped in flowing robes, a turban crowning a face both regal and indescribably powerful. His eyes, oh, his eyes. Eyes that penetrated not just the surface of the world, but the soul itself. A gaze that seemed to echo from lifetimes long forgotten. She froze. Every cell in her body trembled with recognition. And in that moment she knew. It was him, the one who had watched her since the beginning. The guide, the protector, the teacher waiting in the shadows of eternity. And then he spoke. His voice, deep, resonant, timeless, carried a message that would change everything. The time has come. 7 simple words, and yet, within them, the weight of centuries. Within them, the unfolding of a destiny that would shatter illusions and ignite a spiritual revolution that would echo far beyond the narrow borders of the 19th century. But who was this master? Who was she truly? And what exactly happened on that day in 1851, at the very heart of London? This is their story. The meeting of Blavatsky and Master Morya. The year, 1851. The heart of the Victorian era. London was pulsing, electrified by the grand spectacle of the Great Exhibition, a celebration of progress, of industry, of human mastery over matter itself. Inside the towering glass cathedral of the Crystal Palace, machines roared, metals gleamed, and inventions from every corner of the earth dazzled the eyes of millions. The future, it seemed, belonged to mankind, to steam, iron, science, and reason. But, as always, lies behind the noise, behind the applause, behind the glittering veil of progress, something else was moving. Something not meant for the crowds, not meant for the newspapers, the scientists, or the royals. It was an exhibition of another kind, an exhibition invisible into the eyes of the ordinary, a gathering, not of inventors or engineers, but of forces, forces older than history, older than this world. And among the thousands moving through the streets of London that day, she was there. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, a traveler, a seeker wandering through the chaos of the material world, while chasing a thread, a whisper, a promise. She had crossed oceans to be here, and though the world believed her presence was by chance, or curiosity. She knew better. Her entire being pulsed with a strange tension, a pull, as if the very air carried a frequency, a vibration, guiding her steps towards something inevitable. And then, she saw him. Not across a crowded room, not hidden in shadows, but standing there, in the open as though waiting, precisely, for her. Tall, imposing, dressed in the flowing robes of the East. His turban framed a face marked by dignity, power, and an impossible serenity. But it wasn't his appearance that struck her like lightning. It was his presence, a presence that vibrated through her bones, through the fabric of reality itself. Her breath caught, her pulse raced, her hands trembled. Because this was not a stranger, not a man she was meeting for the first time. It was him, the one. The face that had haunted her dreams since childhood. The figure that had appeared in moments of crisis, of danger, of revelation. He had walked beside her in visions, whispered to her in languages no human tongue could replicate, pulled her back from death more than once, when her reckless spirit pushed the limits of this world. And now, here he stood. Not a phantom, not a dream, but flesh and blood, and something far more, as if reality itself had bent, folded, rearranged its patterns and to manifest this impossible moment. He stepped forward, not hurried, not hesitant, every movement precise, deliberate, as though choreographed by a force beyond time. His eyes met hers. What eyes they were! Dark, deep, endless. Not eyes that looked at you, but through you. Past the skin, past the body, past even the mind. Into the very core of your being, into the soul and beyond. In that gaze, the illusion of separateness shattered. There was no you and I, no past, no future. Only presence, only the infinite, staring back at itself. Blavatsky stood frozen. Every fiber of her existence knew. It was him, the master, the teacher, the guardian, the one who had guided her across lifetimes, across worlds, across realities. But how? Why here? Why now? And then he spoke. His voice was not loud, not forceful. It was calm, yet absolute, a sound that was less heard and more experienced. It vibrated inside her chest and inside her bones, as if reality itself was adjusting to the frequency of his words. The time has come. Simple, uncomplicated, but beneath those words, a weight that carried centuries, millennia, perhaps entire cycles of existence. The time had come. For what? The question echoed within her, louder than the bells of Westminster, louder than the noise of the exhibition, louder than anything the outer world could ever produce. What? Was this time? The time to awaken? To remember? To serve? Or the time to step onto a path that could never be abandoned? A path that demanded everything, her life, her identity, perhaps even her soul. She opened her mouth, but no words came. There were no words for this. Only the pounding of her heart, the trembling of her hands, and the undeniable, overwhelming force and of recognition. He looked at her, not with affection, not with emotion, but with something far greater, with knowing. As if every mistake she had made, every failure, every triumph, every scar from every lifetime, were all written plainly, obvious, irrelevant, because who she had been no longer mattered, only who she must become. And yet, he waited, for her, for the choice, because even this was not a command. It was an offering, an opening, to a path few had ever walked, and fewer still had survived. The time has come. But The time for what? The words echoed like thunder in her mind, and along with them, 1,000 questions erupted. Who, or what, was this man? A sage? A sorcerer? An illusion? A being of flesh or spirit? Or something neither and both? How could someone step from the realm of dreams into the waking world? And most of all, why had he called her? Why now? Why here? Why her? Was this a destiny written long before her birth? Or was it a trap? A test? A labyrinth from which there was no return? And so, standing there beneath the gray skies of London, in the midst of a world obsessed with machines, progress, and material glory, a different kind of revolution began. Silent, invisible, but unstoppable. The meeting had taken place. But its meaning, its purpose, and its consequences would not be revealed, not yet. Because this was only the beginning. Morya, or as some knew him, Mahatma M. A name whispered in esoteric circles, a shadow moving silently behind the veils of history, a presence both feared and revered. But who was he really? A man, a sage, a myth, or something else entirely? To understand Morya, one must abandon the shallow waters of ordinary thinking. This is not a story of saints in marble, nor of gods in the clouds. This is the story of a brotherhood, a lineage as old as the mountains themselves, and as secret as the breath between thoughts. They are known as the Mahatmas of the Himalayas, the guardians of the ageless wisdom, the keepers of the inner teaching, the invisible architects of humanity's spiritual evolution. Not gods, not angels, not disembodied spirits, but men, and yet something more than men. Men who had walked the same roads as all of us. Men who had suffered, struggled, and fallen, but who, through lifetimes of discipline, sacrifice, and transcendence, had risen beyond the gravitational pull of ordinary existence. Beings who had pierced the illusion of separateness, who had silenced the endless noise of the mind, who had subdued the tyranny of the senses, and in doing so, unlocked capacities so vast, so incomprehensible, that to the ordinary eye, they seemed supernatural. But were they supernatural, or were they simply natural in ways we have forgotten? According to the ancient esoteric traditions, the Mahatmas are not visitors from other worlds, but the inevitable future of humanity itself. They are what we can become. Morya was one of the most enigmatic among them. A prince by birth, a master by choice, a man who had renounced privilege, power, and comfort to tread the razor's edge of the occult path. A man of towering presence, physically formidable, over 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, with the bearing of a warrior. But it was not his stature that made him formidable. It was his mind. A mind trained in the secret sciences of consciousness. A will honed to such perfection that thought itself became action. Distance became meaningless. And the barriers between what is called physical and what is called spiritual began to dissolve. But Morya was not a spirit, not an ethereal presence drifting through dimensions. No, he was flesh, bone, blood, a living being, breathing the same air, walking the same earth. And yet, his consciousness operated on levels utterly inaccessible to the common mortal. Helena Blavatsky made this distinction clear. She insisted, again and again, that the masters were not ghosts, nor hallucinations, nor fantasies born of a fevered mind. They were real. More real, perhaps, than the cities and empires that rise and fall with the tides of time. But then, who are they, really? And where do they dwell? The legends speak of Shambhala, of hidden monasteries beyond the reach of maps, of caves nestled deep within the frozen arms of the Himalayas, places protected not merely by geography, but by something far stranger, veils of perception, energetic barriers. mental filters that render them invisible to all but those who are invited. It is said that these beings are the custodians of the occult brotherhood, a lineage of adepts that predates all known civilizations: Egypt, Sumer, Atlantis, and even before. A lineage tasked with guarding humanity's most sacred knowledge, the science of the soul, the mechanisms of karma, the invisible laws that govern matter, energy, and consciousness itself. They do not interfere. They do not impose. They do not seek followers or worship or recognition. Instead, they wait, watching, guiding, whispering to those few who are ready. And now, pause, reflect. How many times in the history of humanity have invisible forces stood silently behind the great movements of the world, without ever being seen, without ever being acknowledged? Revolutions, discoveries, awakenings, moments when entire civilizations shifted course. Were these truly the works of chance, or of human genius alone? Or what were their hands unseen, minds operating in the shadows, ensuring that the flame of knowledge was never fully extinguished? Consider this. Throughout the ages, mystics, prophets, philosophers, all have spoken, in whispers or in riddles, of the existence of the hidden ones, the elder brothers, the watchers, the inner government of the world. Call them what you will. The names are many, the realities is singular. Morya was one such being. To those fortunate, or perhaps destined, to cross his path, he was a force of nature. Not gentle, not indulgent, not the romanticized image of a saint sitting in serene contemplation. No. Morya was fire. The fire of discipline. The fire of will. The fire that burns away illusions, masks, pretenses, until only truth remains. Many could not withstand it. His presence was overwhelming, demanding. It exposed every shadow, every weakness, every lie we tell ourselves. And yet, to those willing to face that fire, he offered something priceless. Not salvation, not comfort, but one of the keys to freedom. Freedom from ignorance. Freedom from the endless wheel of birth and death. Freedom from the prison of the ego. But such freedom comes at a price few are willing to pay. Blavatsky did pay it, and in doing so, became the bridge. The bridge between this world and theirs, between the visible and the invisible, between the mundane and the sacred. But ask yourself, was this meeting an isolated event, a rare anomaly in the tapestry of human existence? Or are such meetings happening still, today, in quiet corners of the world, away from cameras, away from headlines, between the hidden ones and those who dare to seek? The encounter was brief, but irrevocable. Nothing would ever be the same. In that fleeting exchange beneath the gray skies of London, a destiny was sealed. Morya, the one who had haunted her dreams since childhood, now stood before her not as a phantom but as flesh and as presence, his undeniable reality. And his words fell upon her like thunder wrapped in silk. There is a mission, not a suggestion, not an invitation, a declaration, a calling that transcended her personal desires, her fears, even her comprehension. A mission to bring the hidden wisdom of the East to the restless, skeptical, materialistic mind of the West. A mission to preserve what was on the verge of being lost, to ignite what had been forgotten, to awaken what had fallen into the deepest sleep. The ancient teachings, the occult science of the soul, the sacred knowledge of the laws that govern not only matter, but consciousness, destiny, the invisible architecture of the cosmos. But the task was not simply to speak. It was not to preach, nor to persuade. It was to transmit, to become a living bridge between worlds that had long been separated. And yet, before that bridge could be built, there was a price to pay, a test, a proving. Because the knowledge she sought to carry was not merely intellectual, it was vibrational, energetic, a force that demanded purity of purpose, strength of will, and a mind forged in the fires of inner transformation. Morya's gaze was clear, his message uncompromising. First, you must prove yourself, not to me, not to the brotherhood, but to the law itself. And what does it mean to prove oneself in the eyes of cosmic law? It means to strip away everything false, to dismantle the illusions of identity, the masks of personality, the chains of ego, to face the abyss within, to walk willingly into the unknown. And so, the first task was given, a task that had broken many before her. She was to reach the forbidden heart of Tibet, the veiled sanctuaries of the brotherhood, the sacred places that no foreigner, no outsider, had ever touched. It was not merely a journey of geography, it was a journey of thresholds, of confronting the very limits of human endurance, of navigating terrains not just of stone and ice, but of consciousness itself. But the world was not ready to yield its secrets easily. The barriers were many: physical, political, cultural, magical. The Tibetan plateau, vast, merciless, and mysterious, stood like a living guardian before the gates of the hidden world. The elements turned against her: fever, exhaustion, hostility, betrayal. Her body weakened, her resources drained, and she failed. Yes, but her first attempt ended in failure. She did not reach the inner sanctum. She did not cross the final veil. The doors remained closed. To most, this would have been the end. The reasonable choice would have been to turn back, to abandon the madness, to accept that some secrets were not meant to be touched. But reason had no power over her spirit, because the calling was louder than the voices of doubt, stronger than the sting of failure, deeper than the pain of defeat. It echoed from a place beyond memory, beyond this life. A knowing that this was not merely a mission of this lifetime, but the continuation of a vow made long before birth, long before flesh, long before the illusion of time. So she rose, bruised, but unbroken, and something within her shifted, a realization that the failure was itself part of the test, that the path to the brotherhood was not a straight line, but a spiral that demanded not arrival, but transformation. The journey was the initiation. Every hardship, every obstacle, every fall was not a punishment, but a forging, a refinement of will, a purification of motive, a stripping away of everything that was not aligned with the higher law. And so, the failure became fuel. She understood, perhaps for the first time, that to reach the inner sanctum, one must first build that sanctum within. The mountains were a mirror. The gates of Tibet were the gates of the soul. And unless those gates opened inwardly, they would never open outwardly. But even in failure, there were signs, strange meetings, unexplained protections, messages whispered in dreams, guidance that seemed to come from nowhere, yet everywhere. Morya, though distant in body, was never absent in spirit. His presence, subtle, electric, and relentless, pressed upon her like the weight of destiny itself. This is only the beginning, and she knew, deep in her marrow, that the path forward would demand everything: her comfort, her safety, her very identity. But in exchange, it would offer something rare, something sacred, a life not wasted in the trivial pursuits of the world, but consecrated to the great work, to become a vessel through which an ancient flame could once more ignite the sleeping soul of humanity. The mission was now alive within her, a fire that no failure could extinguish. And though the road ahead was shrouded in shadow, one thing was certain: she would walk it, no matter the cost. Because some calls are stronger than life itself. From that encounter, nothing would ever be the same. A single moment, a glance, a voice that pierced through the fabric of reality. The time has come. It was more than a message. It was a detonation, a spiritual explosion that shattered the walls of limitation and tore open the veil that separates the seen from the unseen. From that day forward, the course of her life was no longer hers alone. A current had been activated, a current that would ripple far beyond the streets of London, beyond the mountains of Tibet, beyond the borders of nations and centuries. It was the genesis of something the modern world had forgotten, but that the soul of humanity had always yearned for. The seeds planted in that encounter would grow into a movement, a revolution of consciousness known to the world as the Theosophical Society, a society not bound by religion nor by dogma, but by the pursuit of truth, beyond appearances, beyond superstition, beyond the illusion of separation. A society whose purpose was threefold: to form a nucleus of universal brotherhood, to study ancient and modern philosophies, sciences, and religions, and to investigate the hidden laws of nature and the latent powers within humanity itself. But how does such a monumental force begin? Not with armies, not with wealth, not with power as the world understands it. It began with one woman, a woman set ablaze by the fire of an encounter. A fire that demanded expression, through writing, through teaching, through the relentless unveiling of that which had long been concealed. And so came the books. First, Isis Unveiled. A thunderous work, a challenge thrown directly into the face of materialism and blind dogma. A declaration that science and spirituality are not enemies, but reflections of the same universal truth, seen from different eyes. Then, years later, after further trials, initiations, and years walking between worlds, came the magnum opus, The Secret Doctrine, a book not written merely with ink, but with the very marrow of her being, a synthesis of the wisdom of ages, a cartography of the invisible universe, a key to the mysteries, both cosmic and personal. These were not just books. They were transmissions, energetic codes embedded in words meant to awaken something dormant in those capable of hearing beneath the surface. And yet, the true consequence of that meeting in 1851 was not just the founding of an organization, nor the writing of sacred texts. It was the rebirth of the ageless wisdom into the bloodstream of the modern world. Ideas that had been guarded in temples, caves, and inner sanctums now began to circulate among seekers in the cities, the salons, the universities, and the hidden lodges of the West. Concepts like karma, reincarnation, the unity of all life, once ridiculed or forgotten, began to seep into the collective psyche, not as beliefs, but as memories. Memories of something the soul has always known, but the mind had long forgotten. And yet, this path was not walked without a cost. For with light comes shadow. With revelation comes resistance. She faced ridicule, defamation, betrayal, attacks from skeptics, from religious authorities, from those whose power was threatened by the unveiling of forbidden truths. Her health collapsed, her body suffered, but her will remained unbreakable. Because that fire, once ignited by Morya's presence, could not be extinguished by any force in this world, And yet, as her physical life neared its end, a question began to linger, one that echoes, even now, across the corridors of time. Was the mission completed, or was this merely the beginning? Because the truth is, the encounter in 1851 was not just about her, and it was a transmission intended for anyone, across any time, who could hear, beneath the noise of the world, the same magnetic whisper: the time has come. For the mission was never about a person, nor about an organization. It was and remains about awakening, about remembering that beyond the distractions of the world, beyond the illusions of separation, there exists a hidden current, a lineage of light, a brotherhood not of flesh but of spirit, guiding, watching, waiting for those whose inner fire matches the flame once lit on that fateful day in London. And so, the question lingers. Did the calling end get with her, or does it still echo, I see right now, beneath the surface of this very moment, waiting for the one who dares to answer? Because some voices light never fade, some missions light never end, and some encounters, though they happen in the past, are in truth happening still. And now, I ask you, you, sitting there listening, watching, breathing, do you truly believe that encounters like this belong only to the past? That the age of whispers, visions, and sacred callings has faded into myth? Or could it be that the veil, is thinner than you've ever dared to imagine? Perhaps there are eyes watching you now, not with judgment, not with control, but gaze with an ancient patience, a gaze that has observed the rise and fall of civilizations, of souls, of stars themselves. Perhaps there are whispers, threaded between the silence of your thoughts, calling you softly, persistently, waiting for you to notice. Have you felt it? In the strange pull of coincidences, in the unexplainable magnetism of certain dreams, in the eerie familiarity of places you've never been, or the sudden knowing of truths you've never been taught. You see, because the truth is, the signs are never absent. They are woven into the very fabric of your reality, in the moments you dismiss as chance, in the faces that pass you by, in the strange feeling that something or someone is waiting. And one day, you turn a corner, not expecting anything, not searching for anything. And there, standing in the shadow of the mundane, is a presence, a figure whose gaze feels older than time itself, eyes that have witnessed the birth of suns and the fall of empires, and that gaze locks onto yours, and not with words at first, but with something deeper, a current, electric, timeless. It bypasses the mind. It goes straight to the marrow of your being, and then, in a voice that seems to echo both outside and inside you, you hear, "The time has come. Not her time, not his time, not their time, what your time be." And in that instant, 1,000 memories flood your senses, memories that are not from this life, or perhaps not even from this world. A knowing rises, undeniable, unstoppable, that everything that has led you to this moment was never random. The pain, the longing, the endless search, the quiet ache that something was always missing. It was the preparation, the initiation, disguised as life itself. And now, the question is no longer philosophical. It is direct, personal, unavoidable. What will you do when the calling comes? Will you turn away, convincing yourself it was imagination, coincidence, a trick of the mind? Or will you remember that deep beneath the surface of this world, there exists an ancient current, a path walked by few but open to all who dare, a path of awakening, not safe, not comfortable, not ordinary, but real. Blavatsky's encounter was not the first, nor was it the last. Because the truth is, the masters, the guardians, the hidden brotherhood, have never truly left. They remain just beyond the edge of what most consider real, watching, waiting for those whose eyes can open and whose hearts are ready to burn. And now, the question stands before you, not as a story from the past, not as a myth, but as a living challenge. Are you listening? Can you feel it? That subtle pressure in your chest and that undeniable sense that this is not just a story. And if one day, on an ordinary afternoon, in an ordinary street, a gaze so ancient, so profound, meets yours, and you hear so with absolute certainty, your time has come, what will you do? The world waits, the veil grows thinner, the current stirs, and somewhere, perhaps not so far from you, a presence is already watching.